The grieving rancher stood over the collapsed black woman in his doorway, knowing this moment would change everything. Snow whipped through the cabin as Zeke Hartwell knelt beside her still form. Her dark skin showed gray beneath the cold. Her breath came in shallow puffs against the wooden floor. Behind him, his mother's rattling cough filled the silence. Constance Hartwell had been dying by inches for months. The town doctor had given up. Zeke had given up too, until now. Heavy boots stomped across his porch. Cornelius Wade's voice cut through the wind. "Hartwell, open this door." Zeke looked down at the woman. She couldn't be more than 20. Her clothes were thin rags. Her hands were cracked from cold and work. She stirred slightly, eyelids fluttering. "I know you're in there," Wade called. "Saw you drag her inside. You know what this means." The woman's eyes opened, dark and afraid. She tried to sit up, then fell back with a soft gasp. Her gaze found Zeke's face. Something passed between them in that moment. Recognition of shared desperation. "Please," she whispered. Wade pounded on the door. "Turn her over, Hartwell. You know what harboring runaways costs." Zeke's jaw tightened. 2 years ago, Martha had died in his arms while he begged for help. The blizzard had trapped them. No doctor would come. No neighbor would risk the storm. He had held her as life slipped away, promising her spirit he would never let fear make him helpless again. He stood and walked to the door. His hand hovered over the latch. Wade's voice carried the weight of the whole territory's prejudice. Your ranch, your reputation, maybe your life, all gone for some beggar who don't belong here. The woman struggled to her knees. "I'll go, don't want trouble." "For you." "Stay down," Zeke said quietly. He slid the heavy wooden bar across the door. The sound echoed through the cabin like a gunshot. Wade's pounding stopped. "You're making a mistake, Hartwell." "Made plenty already," Zeke returned to the woman. She stared at him with wonder and disbelief. He helped her to a chair near the fire. Her skin was like ice. He wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. "What's your name?" "Serafina." "I'm Zeke. That's my mother, Constance." The old woman's cough grew worse. Serafina looked toward the bed in the corner. Constance lay thin and gray against white sheets. Her breathing was labored. Her eyes were closed. "How long has she been sick?" 6 months. "Getting worse every day." Serafina stood on unsteady legs. She moved to the bedside. Her trained eye took in the symptoms. Constance's skin had a yellow tinge. Her breathing was shallow. Her pulse was weak but steady. "May I?" Zeke nodded. Serafina placed gentle fingers on Constance's wrist. The old woman's eyes fluttered open. They focused on Seraphine's face with surprising clarity. "You're the one," Constance whispered. "I dreamed about you. Rest now," Serafina said. Her voice carried something soothing, something that made even Zeke's shoulders relax. Outside, Wade's horse galloped away. His parting words drifted through the wind. "This decision will destroy everything you have left, Hartwell." Zeke watched Serafina tend his mother. She moved with practiced care. Her touch was gentle but confident. She examined Constance's eyes, felt her forehead, listened to her breathing. "She needs willow bark tea. And something for the lung congestion. You know medicine?" Serafina hesitated. "Some. My grandmother taught me." She wasn't telling the whole truth. Zeke could see it in her careful words. But lies born of necessity were different from lies born of malice. He understood the difference. "There's tea in the kitchen. Whatever you need." "Thank you. Don't thank me yet." Wade wasn't lying about the trouble this brings. Serafina moved to the kitchen. Her movements were efficient despite her exhaustion. She found the tea, started water boiling. Her hands shook slightly as she worked. "Why did you help me?" Zeke stared into the fire. "My wife died 2 years ago. Storm like this one. Nobody would come. Nobody would help. I held her hand while she slipped away. I'm sorry. Swore I'd never let fear make me useless again. Serafina prepared the tea. The cabin filled with the scent of herbs. Constance's breathing seemed to ease just from the smell. I was accused of stealing, Serafina said quietly. From the boarding house in town. Didn't do it, but my word don't count for much. What really happened? Owner's son took money from his father's till. Easier to blame the help than admit his boy's a thief. Zeke believed her. Truth had a sound to it. Her story carried that weight. You can stay until the storm passes. Help with my mother if you're willing. I'm willing. After that, we'll see. Serafina brought the tea to Constance. She helped the old woman sit up, supporting her with surprising strength. Constance sipped slowly. Color returned to her cheeks. Better already, she whispered. It's just the beginning, Serafina said. But yes, you'll feel better. Zeke watched this exchange with growing hope. His mother hadn't shown improvement in weeks. Now she was sitting up, speaking clearly. Maybe desperation had brought him exactly what he needed. There's a cot in the back room, he told Serafina. Not much, but it's warm. More than I had this morning. We'll figure out tomorrow when it comes. Serafina nodded. She settled Constance back into bed, adjusting pillows and blankets. The old woman's eyes stayed alert, following Seraphine's movements. She's a gift, Constance whispered to Zeke. Maybe so. The storm howled outside. Inside, the cabin felt different already. Warmer somehow, more alive. Zeke couldn't remember the last time he'd felt hope stirring in his chest. Serafina disappeared. Into the back room, Zeke heard her settle onto the cot. The fire crackled. His mother's breathing grew steadier. For the first time in months, Constance slept peacefully. For the first time in years, Zeke felt like he'd made a choice that mattered. The storm would pass. Wade would return with his threats. But tonight, 3 broken people had found shelter. Together, that was enough for now. Dawn broke cold and clear. Serafina woke before the sun, her body trained to early hours by years of servitude. She dressed quietly and stepped into the main room. Zeke sat at the kitchen table, coffee steaming in his hands. His eyes were red-rimmed. He hadn't slept. How's your mother? Breathing easier, first time in weeks. Serafina moved to Constance's bedside. The old woman's color was better. Her breathing steady and deep. Serafina pressed her ear to Constance's chest. The rattling was less pronounced. She needs more willow bark. And something for the congestion in her lungs. Don't have much in the way of medicine. I can make what she needs. If you have the right plants. Zeke studied her face. You know more than you're saying. Seraphine's hands stilled. I know enough to help her. Where'd you learn? Here and there. The answer carried weight. Unspoken history. Zeke didn't press. Everyone had secrets worth keeping. There's a root cellar out back. Martha grew herbs. Most are dried now, but they might work. I'll look. Serafina stepped outside. The air was sharp and clean. Snow covered everything in pristine white. Her breath formed clouds that dissipated quickly. She found the root cellar, descended the wooden steps. Inside, dried herbs hung from rafters, sage, thyme, echinacea. Martha had known her plants. Serafina selected what she needed, her trained eye recognizing medicinal properties that most would miss. She had learned far more than herb lore from the missionary family who raised her. They had taught her to read, to write, to think critically. Dangerous knowledge for a woman of her station. Knowledge that could get her killed if the wrong people discovered it. Back in the cabin, she prepared a more complex remedy. Zeke watched her work. Her movements were precise, measured. She knew exactly what she was doing. You're not just someone's grandmother's student. Serafina kept her eyes on her work. I'm someone who wants to help your mother. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give. Zeke accepted this. He poured himself more coffee. The silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people learning to trust. Constance stirred. Her eyes opened, clearer than they had been in months. She looked at Serafina with recognition. You're still here. I'm still here. Good, I dreamed you left. Serafina helped Constance sit up. She gave her the new medicine, watched as the old woman drank it without complaint. Constance's hands were steadier today. Tell me about your dreams, Serafina said. I dreamed about my son. When he was young. Before the world made him hard. Zeke's jaw tightened. He stood and walked to the window. Outside, the snow sparkled under morning sun. Beautiful and cold. He wasn't always so closed off, Constance continued. Used to laugh. Used to believe. In things. What happened? Life. Loss. The weight of trying to be decent in indecent times. Serafina understood. She had carried similar weight. The burden of maintaining humanity when the world insisted you were less than human. He's still decent, she said quietly. Or I wouldn't be here. Yes, but he's forgotten how to hope. A horse approached the cabin. Zeke's shoulders tensed. He moved away from the window, hand instinctively moving to the rifle above the mantel. Wade. No, Johnson from the next ranch over. Johnson dismounted and approached the door. His knock was respectful but firm. Zeke opened it, blocking the view inside. Morning, Hartwell. Johnson. Heard you had some trouble last night. Wade's. Spreading word around town. What kind of word? The kind that makes decent folks nervous. Says you're harboring a runaway. Says she's dangerous. Zeke's hand tightened on the door. Wade says a lot of things. True enough. But others are listening. Thought you should know. I appreciate it. Johnson tipped his hat. You're a good man, Hartwell. Don't let them make you forget that. He rode away, leaving tracks in the fresh snow. Zeke closed the door and turned to find Serafina watching him. I should go. Where? Somewhere that won't bring you trouble. Trouble's already here. Has been since Martha died. Serafina looked at Constance, who was sitting up, alert and listening. The old woman's improvement was remarkable. In one day, she had gone from death's door to genuine recovery. She needs at least a week of treatment, maybe more. Then you stay a week. They'll come for me. Let them come. The words carried conviction. Zeke had made his choice. Serafina could see it in his stance, in the set of his shoulders. He would not be moved. I don't understand why you're helping me. Neither do I, but that wasn't entirely true. Zeke did understand, at least partially. Serafina moved through his home with quiet grace. She tended his mother with genuine care. She asked for nothing and gave everything. She reminded him of Martha in ways that didn't hurt. Martha had been fierce, passionate, always fighting for what was right. Serafina was quieter, more careful, but the same strength lived in her bones. Wade will be back, Serafina said. Probably. With others. Maybe. You could lose everything. Already lost everything that mattered. Serafina looked at Constance, who was watching this exchange with sharp eyes. The old woman smiled slightly. Not everything, Constance said softly. The afternoon passed quietly. Serafina tended to Constance, who continued to improve. She sang soft songs while she worked, melodies that seemed to ease something in the air itself. Zeke found himself listening from the next room, drawn by the sound. He hadn't heard music in his home since Martha died. The silence had become so complete he'd forgotten what it felt like to live with sound. With life, evening brought another visitor. This time it was Wade, but he wasn't alone. Two other men sat their horses behind him. Their faces were hard. Their intentions clear. Last chance, Hartwell, Wade called. Send her out, or we'll come in and get her." Zeke stepped onto the porch. The rifle was in his hands now, not threatening but present. A statement of intent. "She's caring for my mother. She's a thief and a vagrant. Town don't want her kind here. Town didn't elect you spokesman. Some things don't need electing." The men behind Wade shifted in their saddles. Hands moved closer to weapons. The moment balanced on a knife's edge. "I'll ask you once to leave my property," Zeke said. "And I'll ask you once to be reasonable. This is reasonable. You're trespassing." Wade's face flushed red. "You're making enemies, Hartwell. More than you can handle. Wouldn't be the first time." The standoff stretched. Finally, Wade pulled his horse around. But his parting words carried the weight of promise. "This ain't over." They rode away, leaving the evening quiet again. Zeke stood on the porch until their hoofbeats faded. When he turned, Serafina was watching from the doorway. "Thank you," she said. "Don't thank me yet." "Why not?" "Because Wade wasn't lying. This is just the beginning." Inside, Constance was sitting up in bed, alert and worried. "How many were there?" "3. There'll be more next time. I know." Serafina moved to the window. The snow was melting where the sun had touched it. Spring was coming, slowly but surely. Change was in the air. "I won't let them hurt you," Zeke said. "You don't owe me anything." "Maybe not, but I owe myself something. I owe Martha something." "What's that?" "The chance to be the man she thought I was." Serafina turned from the window. Her eyes held something new. Not just gratitude, but recognition. She was seeing him clearly for the first time. "She was lucky to have you. I was lucky to have her." The fire crackled in the hearth. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the scent of coming change. Inside, 3 people who had found each other in the storm began to understand that storms could bring gifts as well as destruction. Constance fell asleep easily, her breathing steady and strong. Serafina prepared for another night in the back room. But before she disappeared, she stopped beside Zeke's chair. "Your mother is right." "You know, about what?" "You haven't lost everything that matters." She was gone before he could respond. Zeke sat by the fire, listening to the wind and thinking about hope. For the first time in 2 years, it didn't feel like a luxury he couldn't afford. 3 days passed in careful routine. Serafina tended Constance with increasing skill, revealing layers of knowledge that spoke of formal training. She could read the old woman's symptoms with the precision of a trained physician. Her remedies worked with startling effectiveness. Constance sat up for meals now. Her color had returned. Her breathing was clear and strong. The transformation bordered on miraculous. "Where did you really learn?" Zeke asked one morning as Serafina prepared another complex remedy. There was a family in Ohio, the Weatherbays. He was a minister. She was a teacher. They took me in when I was 12. What happened to them? Influenza. Both of them, within a week, left me with nothing but what they'd taught me. Zeke watched her hands work with practiced efficiency. "They taught you more than herbs. They taught me to read, to write, to think for myself. Dangerous knowledge. The most dangerous." Seraphine's voice carried weight. In a world where her literacy could be seen as threatening, she had learned to hide her intelligence behind careful words and downcast eyes. But here, in this cabin, she was allowing glimpses of her true self. How long since they died? 4 years. Been moving ever since. Never staying long enough to feel safe. Safe from what? From people who think knowledge makes me uppity. From those who'd rather see me broken than educated. Zeke understood. The world had little patience for those who refused to stay in their assigned places. He had learned this lesson when he'd spoken out for freed slaves' rights. The community had marked him as a troublemaker. "That's why you hide it. That's why I survive." Constance listened to this exchange with growing understanding. Her sharp eyes missed nothing. She had watched Serafina move through her home with quiet dignity, had seen the careful way she revealed her capabilities piece by piece. "You're safe here," Constance said quietly. "No place is safe for long. Then we'll make this place worth the risk." That afternoon, Zeke rode to town for supplies. The streets were quieter than usual. People turned away when they saw him. Conversations stopped. The isolation was complete. At the general store, the owner served him with obvious reluctance. Other customers moved to the far end of the shop. Zeke had become a pariah. "Heard you're keeping unusual company," the store owner said. "Heard a lot of things lately. Might be wise to listen." "Might be, but I've never been accused of wisdom." Zeke paid for his supplies and left. The weight of hostile stares followed him to the street. Wade stood across the way, talking to a group of men. Their eyes were fixed on Zeke with unmistakable intent. The ride home felt longer than usual. The landscape seemed to mirror his isolation. Wide empty spaces, distant mountains. A man alone, against the vastness. Back at the cabin, he found Serafina in the kitchen, reading. She quickly closed the book when he entered, but not before he saw the title, medical texts. Advanced Anatomy. Books that would have challenged any trained physician. "Find what you were looking for? More than I bargained for." "Trouble?" "Nothing new." "Just more of it," Serafina nodded. She had expected this. Her presence always brought complications. But Zeke's steady acceptance of those complications touched something deep in her guarded heart. "I could leave tonight. Before it gets worse." "And go where?" "Somewhere. That's not a plan. It's survival." Zeke set down his supplies. His movements were deliberate, purposeful. He was a man who had made his decision and would not be swayed. "My wife used to say that surviving and living were different things. Smart woman. She was. Smarter than me in most ways. What would she say about this situation?" Zeke considered the question. Martha had possessed an unwavering moral compass. She had never hesitated to stand up for what was right, regardless of the cost. She'd say that doing right doesn't get easier when you're scared. Gets harder. But that's when it matters most. And you believe that? "I'm trying to." That evening, Serafina shared more of her story. The Weatherbys had been abolitionists, running a stop on the Underground Railroad. They had educated her not just in medicine and letters, but in the dangerous art of thinking for herself. They believed education was the path to freedom. Real freedom, not just the legal kind. They were right. They were dead. The words hung heavy in the air. Seraphine's face showed the weight of loss, of dreams deferred, of constant vigilance. She had learned to love carefully, to trust sparingly, to hope in small doses. "I'm sorry," Zeke said. "For what?" "For the world that made you carry so much alone." "We all carry things alone. Don't have to." Their eyes met across the small kitchen table. Something passed between them. Recognition, understanding, the beginning of something neither had expected to find. Constance's voice interrupted from the bedroom. "Serafina, could you come here?" Serafina rose, but Constance's next words stopped her. "Bring Zeke. I need to tell you both something." They gathered around the old woman's bed. Constance's eyes were bright with urgency. She reached under her pillow and withdrew a folded paper. "I found this in Zeke's things after Martha died. Never showed it to him. Maybe I should have." She handed the paper to Serafina. It was a letter, written in careful script. Serafina read it silently, her face growing pale. "What is it?" Zeke asked. Serafina looked up at him, her eyes filled with pain and anger. "It's from Dr. Milhouse to someone named Crawford. It's about Martha. What about her? Read it." Zeke took the letter. His hands trembled as he read. The words were careful, coded, but their meaning was clear. Dr. Milhouse had deliberately delayed treating Martha. He had allowed her to die because Zeke had publicly supported freed slaves' rights. He killed her, Zeke whispered. He murdered her, Serafina corrected, because you stood up for people who look like me. The room filled with silence. Zeke's hands clenched into fists. 2 years of grief and guilt suddenly had a target. His wife had died not from fate or bad luck, but from calculated cruelty. Why didn't you show me this before? He asked his mother. Because you were drowning in guilt already. This would have destroyed you. It would have given me purpose. It would have made you into something Martha wouldn't recognize. Constance was right. The letter contained enough rage to fuel a lifetime of hatred. But it also contained something else, proof that standing up for justice carried real costs. That decent people died for indecent reasons. What do we do with this? Serafina asked. I don't know yet. Do you believe in justice? Used to. And now? Zeke looked at the letter. Then at Serafina. Her presence in his home had awakened something he thought was dead. Hope, purpose, the possibility that Martha's death might mean something if he could prevent others. Now I believe in doing what's right, regardless of whether it brings justice. That's the same thing. No, justice is what happens after. Right is what you do now. Outside, the wind picked up. Spring was coming to the Montana Territory. The ground was softening. Seeds were stirring beneath the surface. Change was inevitable. Inside the cabin, 3 people sat with the weight of truth between them. The letter had changed everything. It had given them knowledge that demanded action. But it had also bound them together in a way that mere circumstance could not. He's still out there, Serafina said. Still practicing. Still killing people who can't fight back. I know. Are you going to do something about it? Zeke folded the letter carefully. His movements were steady, but his eyes held new fire. Martha's death had been the end of his world. Now it might be the beginning of something else. We're going to do something about it. We? If you're willing. Serafina looked at Constance, who nodded encouragingly. The old woman's recovery had given her new strength, new purpose. She was ready to fight. I'm willing. Then we start planning. Planning what? How to make sure Dr. Milhouse never hurts anyone again. The fire crackled in the hearth. Outside, the night was cold and clear. Inside, 3 people who had found each other in the storm began to understand that storms could clear the air as well as destroy. Sometimes destruction was necessary before anything new could grow. A week had passed since they found the letter. Zeke and Serafina moved through their days with new purpose. Their conversations carried undertones of shared mission. Their glances held the weight of unspoken understanding. Constance sat in her chair by the window, fully recovered, watching the world beyond their small sanctuary. Her recovery had been complete, miraculous. She was stronger now than she had been in years. They're coming, she said quietly. Zeke looked up from cleaning his rifle. 3 horses approached through the morning mist. Wade led them, flanked by 2 men Zeke didn't recognize. Behind them rode a 4th figure in a black coat. Dr. Milhouse. Stay inside, Zeke told Serafina. No. This isn't about you anymore. It's about all of us. Serafina moved to the window beside Constance. Her face was calm, but her hands trembled slightly. She had seen this scene before. Men with authority and hatred coming to drag her away. The riders stopped outside the cabin. Wade dismounted first, his movements deliberate and threatening. The 2 strangers remained in their saddles, hands resting on their weapons. Dr. Milhouse climbed down slowly. He was a thin man with cold eyes and careful movements. Everything about him suggested precision, calculation. A man who killed with the same methodical approach he used for healing. Hartwell, Wade called. Come out, we need to talk. Zeke stepped onto the porch. His rifle was visible but not raised. A statement of readiness rather than aggression. Dr. Milhouse has something To say, the doctor stepped forward. His voice was cultured, educated, the voice of respectability. Mr. Hartwell, I understand you're harboring a dangerous woman. A thief and a practitioner of dangerous folk medicine. I'm harboring someone who helped my mother. Your mother was never in any real danger. What this woman practices is primitive superstition, dangerous to those who trust it. Zeke's jaw tightened. The doctor's words carried casual dismissal of everything Serafina had accomplished. Her knowledge, her skill, her dedication to healing. My mother was dying, now she's well. Coincidence, natural recovery. These things happen, do they? Something in Zeke's tone made the doctor pause. Wade stepped closer, sensing the shift. In atmosphere. The woman has been accused of poisoning Mrs. Bentley, Dr. Milhouse continued. She died yesterday after taking some herbal remedy. The woman must be questioned. What woman? The one you're hiding. Zeke's mind raced. Mrs. Bentley lived 20 miles away. Serafina had been here every day for over a week. The accusation was impossible. When did Mrs. Bentley die? Yesterday evening. And when was she supposedly given this remedy? 2 days ago. By who? Wade interrupted before the doctor could answer. By your pet. Everyone knows she's been sneaking around, peddling her witchcraft to whoever's fool enough to trust her. She hasn't left this ranch in over a week. You would say that. I would say that because it's true. The doctor's eyes narrowed. He had not expected resistance to his carefully constructed lie. In his experience, accusations against women of Seraphine station were rarely questioned. Nevertheless, she must be questioned. For everyone's safety. Question her here. That's not how this works. It's how it works on my land. The standoff stretched. The two strangers shifted in their saddles, hands moving closer to their weapons. Wade's face flushed with anger. You're obstructing justice. Hartwell. I'm protecting an innocent woman. Innocent? Dr. Milhouse laughed. She's been filling your mother's head with primitive nonsense. Dangerous herbs that could have killed her. The herbs that saved her life. Saved her life? Mr. Hartwell. Your mother was suffering from a simple respiratory ailment. Nothing more. I could have cured her with proper medicine if you'd brought her to me. Like you cured my wife? The words hung in the air. Dr. Milhouse's face went pale. Wade looked confused, sensing undercurrents he didn't understand. Your wife died of natural causes. Did she? Of course she did. I did everything possible. To save her. Everything possible? Zeke's voice carried weight now, knowledge. The doctor began to understand that this was not the simple intimidation he had planned. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. What facts? The facts in your letter to Crawford. Dr. Milhouse went completely still. His carefully constructed facade cracked. Wade looked between them, confused but sensing danger. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. The cabin. Door opened. Serafina stepped onto the porch, followed by Constance. The old woman moved with surprising strength, her eyes fixed on the doctor with unmistakable recognition. Hello, Dr. Milhouse, Constance said. Remember me? You told my son I was beyond help. Terminal, you said. Nothing to be done. Mrs. Hartwell, I'm pleased to see you've recovered. No thanks to you. I provided the best care available. You provided nothing. You wrote me off as a lost cause because my son wouldn't keep his mouth shut about right and wrong. Wade stepped forward, confused and angry. What are you people talking about? We're talking about a doctor who kills people instead of healing them, Serafina said quietly. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious crime. Dr. Milhouse's composure cracked further. This is ridiculous. I'm a respected physician. I've served this community for 15 years. You've served yourself, Constance said, and punished anyone who didn't serve you. I won't listen to this. You'll listen to whatever we choose to tell you. Zeke's voice carried new authority. The discovery of the letter had changed him, given him purpose. He was no longer the broken man who had taken in a stranger. He was someone with a mission. Mrs. Bentley didn't die from any herbal remedy, Serafina said. She died from the same thing that's been killing your other patients. Deliberate neglect, or worse. You can't prove anything. Can't we? Constance reached into her coat and withdrew a folded paper. Not the letter they had found, but something else. Something new. I've been busy this past week, she said. Talking to people, asking questions. Amazing what folks will tell you when you ask the right way. She unfolded the paper. It was covered in her careful handwriting. Names, dates, circumstances. 15 people in 5 years, she read. All of them died. Under your care, all of them had something in common. What? They couldn't pay your fees, or they crossed you in some way, or they were inconvenient. Dr. Milhouse's face went white. That's coincidence. 15 coincidences? People die. It's the nature of medicine. People die when you want them to die. Wade looked around the group, finally understanding that he was in the middle of something much larger than he had planned. His simple mission to intimidate had become something else entirely. This is crazy talk, he said. Is it? Zeke asked. How many people has the good doctor failed to save? How many died when they should have lived? He's a doctor. He does his best. His best for who? Serafina stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but her words carried the weight of absolute certainty. Dr. Milhouse, I know what you've been doing. I know how you've been doing it, and I know why. You know nothing. I know everything. Because I'm everything you hate. Educated, capable, unafraid, and I'm going to make sure everyone else knows too. The doctor's mask finally slipped completely. His face showed naked hatred, the kind that had driven him to kill Martha Hartwell and countless others. You're nothing, he snarled. Nothing but an uppity woman who needs to be put in her place. There it is, Constance said quietly. The truth finally. The moment balanced on a knife's edge. 4 people stood against 3, but the 3 were armed and desperate. The morning sun cast long shadows across the ranch yard, and in those shadows the future of everyone present hung in the balance. Wade's hand moved toward his gun. The 2 strangers followed suit. Dr. Milhouse stepped back, letting others do his violent work as he had always done, but Zeke was ready. His rifle came up smoothly, naturally. Serafina stood beside him, unafraid. Constance remained calm, her evidence clutched in her weathered hands. Your choice, Zeke said quietly. But choose carefully, because this is where it ends, one way or another. The standoff stretched across the morning air. 6 people faced each other in the ranch yard, their futures balanced on the edge of violence. The sun climbed higher, burning away the mist and leaving everything stark and clear. Wade's hand hovered over his pistol. The 2 strangers watched their leader, waiting for the signal. Dr. Milhouse stood behind them, his face a mask of cold calculation. You're making a mistake, Hartwell, Wade said. Put down that rifle. The mistake was made 2 years ago, when a good woman died because one man's hatred mattered more than her life. Ancient history. Present reality. Zeke's rifle remained steady. His stance was calm, rooted. A man who had found his ground and would not be moved from it. Mrs. Bentley is dead, Dr. Milhouse said. This woman killed her with her primitive remedies. That's all that matters now. Mrs. Bentley is dead, Constance agreed. But not from any remedy Serafina gave her. She held up another paper. Her handwriting covered it in neat lines. Names, dates, testimonies. I visited the Bentley ranch yesterday. Talked to the hired hands. Interesting what they had to say. Wade's eyes narrowed. You're an old woman. Nobody listens to old women. They listen to old women who ask the right questions. What questions? About who visited Mrs. Bentley the day she died. About what medicines she was given. About who had access to her food and water. Dr. Milhouse stepped forward. Whatever you think you know, you're wrong. Am I? Then explain why Mrs. Bentley's hired man saw you leaving her house the morning she died. Explain why her medicine bottles were found empty in your wagon. That's impossible, is it? Constance unfolded the paper. Tom Henderson saw you at the Bentley place. Said you were acting strange, nervous. Said you told him not to mention your visit to anyone. Henderson is a drunk. No one will believe him. Maybe not. But they'll believe Sarah Martinez. She does the washing for half the county. Saw you dumping empty bottles in the creek behind the Bentley house. Wade looked at the doctor with growing suspicion. This was not the simple intimidation he had signed up for. The certainty in Constance's voice suggested she had evidence that could destroy them all. And then there's the matter of your medical bag, Constance continued. The one you left behind in your hurry to leave. The one Mrs. Bentley's daughter found after her mother died. Dr. Milhouse's face went gray. What medical bag? The one with the bottles of arsenic. The one with your name engraved on the brass nameplate. The word hung in the air, arsenic, the slow poison that had killed Martha Hartwell and countless others. The weapon of a man who murdered with medical precision. You're lying. Am I? Then you won't mind if we ride into town and ask the sheriff to examine the bag. Ask him to test those bottles. Ask him to compare the contents with what's in Mrs. Bentley's body. Wade's hand moved away from his gun. The two strangers exchanged glances. They had signed up to intimidate a woman they thought was powerless, not to cover up murder. This is getting complicated, one of them said. It's getting simple, Zeke replied. Simple choice. Walk away now, or face the consequences of helping a killer. We didn't know. Now you do. The two men looked at Wade, then at Dr. Milhouse. The doctor's guilt was written across his face in lines of panic and desperation. This is ridiculous, Wade said, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? Serafina stepped forward. How many people has he failed to save? How many died under his care when they should have lived? Doctors lose patience. That's natural. 15 in 5 years? All of them poor, or troublesome, or inconvenient? 15? Constance nodded. I've been asking questions all week. Amazing what people remember when you help them connect. The dots. She began reading from her list. Names, dates, circumstances. A pattern of death that followed the doctor's movements through the territory. Jenny Morrison died after refusing to pay his inflated fees. Billy Santos died after his father complained about the doctor's treatment of other patients. Old Man Fletcher died after he threatened to report the doctor to territorial authorities. You can't prove any of this, can't I? I've got witnesses. I've got testimony. I've got that medical bag with your name on it. Dr. Milhouse's composure cracked completely. Those people were dying anyway. I just stopped prolonging their suffering. You stopped prolonging their lives. Some lives aren't worth prolonging. According to who? According to natural order. According to the way things are supposed to be. Serafina stepped closer. According to your hatred. Your need to punish anyone who doesn't bow down to your authority. You people don't understand. Your place. Our place. What place is that? Beneath, subservient, grateful for whatever scraps of attention you receive. There it is, Zeke said quietly. The truth behind all the deaths. Wade looked around the group, finally understanding the magnitude of what he had become involved in. His simple prejudice had made him complicit in serial murder. I didn't know, he said. You didn't want to know, Constance replied. Easier to blame the woman than question the man. What happens now? Now we ride into town, Zeke said. We present the evidence. We let justice take its course. And if we refuse, then you become accessories to murder. And we treat you accordingly. The two strangers were already backing toward their horses. They had no stake in this fight, no loyalty worth dying for. They mounted quickly and rode away without a word. Wade stood alone with the doctor, his authority evaporated. The morning sun cast harsh light across the ranch yard, revealing everything with unforgiving clarity. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes, it is," Serafina replied. "It's been over since the moment you chose hatred over justice. I chose order. You chose murder." Dr. Milhouse made a sudden movement toward his horse. Zeke's rifle swung to track him, but the doctor wasn't reaching for a weapon. He was reaching for a small bottle in his saddlebag. "No," Constance said. Sharply, the doctor paused, the bottle in his hand. His face showed the calculation of a man weighing his options. Prison and disgrace against a quick exit on his own terms. "Put it down," Zeke said. "Why? So you can parade me through town? So you can destroy everything I've built? So you can face what you've done? I've done what was necessary. You've done what was evil." The doctor looked at the bottle, then at the faces surrounding him. He saw no mercy there. No forgiveness. Only the implacable demand for justice. "You don't understand," he said. "You don't know what it's like to watch ignorant people make stupid choices. To see them waste the lives I could save for more deserving patients. Whose lives were more deserving? People who mattered. People who contributed. People who understood their obligations. People who looked like you. People who belonged." Serafina stepped forward. "Everyone belongs. Everyone deserves healing. Everyone deserves life. Not everyone. Everyone." The word carried absolute conviction. Serafina had dedicated her life to healing, to preserving life regardless of who needed saving. The doctor had dedicated his to the opposite. "You're wrong," he said. "I'm right. And you know it." Dr. Milhouse looked at the bottle again. His hand trembled slightly. Behind him, Wade shifted nervously, calculating his own chances of escape. "Don't," Constance said. "Don't make it worse than it already is. It can't get worse. It can get better, if you choose to make it better." "How?" "By living with what you've done. By helping us make sure it never happens again." The doctor's hand tightened on the bottle. For a moment, the outcome balanced on his decision. Then, slowly, he let his hand drop. "I want a lawyer. You'll get one. I want guarantees. You'll get justice." "That's not the same thing." "No, it's better." Wade looked around the group, seeing his own future written in their faces. "What about me? What about you? I didn't kill anyone. You enabled it. You protected it. You spread the lies that made it possible. I believed what I was told. You believed what you wanted to believe." The sun reached its zenith, burning away the last of the morning coolness. The ranch yard was hot and still, the air thick with the weight of revelation. "We ride into town now," Zeke said. "All of us together. And then? Then we let the truth speak for itself." He looked at Serafina, standing calm and strong beside him. At Constance, her evidence clutched in weathered hands. At two men who had built their power on others' suffering. The truth has a way of winning, eventually. Is it? When good people stand up for it. When they refuse to be intimidated. When they choose justice over safety. And if it doesn't win, then we keep fighting until it does. The ride into town stretched across the morning heat. 5. Riders moved through the dusty streets, their procession drawing stares and whispers. Word had already spread. The truth had a way of traveling fast in small communities. Sheriff Morrison stood outside his office, waiting. He was a fair man. Honest but cautious. The territorial government had taught him to avoid complications. But some complications couldn't be avoided. "Hartwell," he said as they approached. "Sheriff." Heard you were having troubles out at your place. Had troubles. They're resolved now. Zeke dismounted, then helped Constance down from her horse. Serafina slid gracefully from her saddle, her movements calm despite the hostile stares from townspeople gathering on the street. Dr. Milhouse and Wade remained mounted, their futures uncertain. The doctor's face was pale, resigned. Wade's showed growing panic as he realized the magnitude of his situation. "What can I do for you?" Sheriff Morrison asked. "We need to report some crimes." "What kind of crimes?" "Murder. Multiple murders." The sheriff's eyebrows rose. "That's a serious accusation. It's a serious crime." Constance stepped forward, her evidence clutched in her hands. "Sheriff, I have testimony from a dozen witnesses. Names, dates, circumstances. A pattern of death that needs investigation." "What kind of pattern?" "The kind that follows Dr. Milhouse wherever he goes." The doctor finally dismounted. His movements were slow, defeated. "I want to speak to a lawyer." "You'll get one. After we hear what these folks have to say." They moved into the sheriff's office. The space was small, cramped. Maps covered the walls. Wanted posters hung beside territorial notices. The smell of coffee and tobacco filled the air. "Start from the beginning," Sheriff Morrison said. Constance spread her papers across his desk. Her handwriting covered page after page. Names, dates, witness statements. A careful catalog of death and deception. 15 people in 5 years, she began. All of them died under Dr. Milhouse's care. All of them had reasons to live. People die, Mrs. Hartwell. It's the nature of medicine. Not like this, not with this pattern. She read from her list. Each name carried weight, history, interrupted dreams. Jenny Morrison, the sheriff's own cousin. Billy Santos, who had been recovering from his injuries until the doctor's final visit. Old man Fletcher, who had threatened to expose the doctors. Crimes. These people were murdered, Serafina said quietly. That's a strong word. It's the right word. Sheriff Morrison studied the papers, his face growing grave. His cousin Jenny's death had always troubled him. She had been improving, then suddenly declined. The doctor had explained it as natural progression, but something had felt wrong. You have evidence? We have Mrs. Bentley's medical bag, the one with Dr. Milhouse's name on it. The one filled with arsenic. Where is it? At the Bentley ranch, along with witnesses who saw him there the day she died. The sheriff looked at Dr. Milhouse, who sat silent in his chair. The doctor's guilt was written across his face in lines of defeat and desperation. Doctor, you want to respond to these accusations? I want my lawyer. You'll get him. But these people have a right to speak. Serafina stepped forward. Sheriff, I've been caring for Mrs. Hartwell. She was dying when I arrived. Now she's healthy and strong. Dr. Milhouse had written her off as terminal. Medical opinions differ. This wasn't a medical opinion. This was a death sentence. Based on what? Based on her son's politics. Based on his willingness to stand up for what's right. The sheriff looked at Zeke, who had remained silent through most of the testimony. That true, Hartwell? It's true. How do you know? Because I have the letter that proves it. Zeke produced the doctor's letter to Crawford. The sheriff read it slowly, his face darkening with each line. The words were careful, coded, but their meaning was unmistakable. This is your handwriting, Doctor? Dr. Milhouse stared at the floor. I invoke my right to counsel. You can invoke whatever you want. But this letter speaks for itself. The sheriff stood and walked to his window. Outside, the town was buzzing with activity. People gathered in small groups, talking in hushed tones. The story was spreading, growing, taking on a life of its own. Wade, he said without turning around, what's your part in this? I didn't know about any murders, but you knew about the harassment, the intimidation, the lies. I believed what I was told. You believed what you wanted to believe, Maybe so. No maybe about it. Sheriff Morrison turned back to the group. His face showed the weight of decision. He was a man who had spent his career avoiding difficult choices. Now he faced one that would define his legacy. I'm placing Dr. Milhouse under arrest for suspicion of murder. You can't prove anything. I can try. And I will. What about Wade? Serafina asked. What about him? He enabled this. He spread the lies that made it possible. That's not a crime. It should be. The sheriff considered this. Wade had not committed murder, but he had created the conditions that allowed murder to flourish. His hatred had provided cover for the doctor's crimes. Wade, you're banned from the Hartwell Ranch. You come within a mile of their property. I'll arrest you for trespassing. That's not enough. It's what I can do legally. Then we'll have to trust that justice finds other ways. The sheriff locked Dr. Milhouse in the single cell at the back of his office. The doctor went quietly, his fight exhausted. He had built his power on others' weakness. When confronted with strength, he had nothing left. What happens now? Zeke asked. Now we wait for the territorial judge. He'll decide if there's enough evidence for trial. And if there isn't, then we keep digging until there is. Outside, the town was transforming. The doctor's arrest had shattered the careful balance of power and prejudice. People were choosing sides, revealing their true natures. Some defended the doctor out of habit. Others spoke up for the first time, sharing their own suspicious encounters. Zeke, Serafina, and Constance walked through the streets together. Their presence drew stares, but also nods of support. The truth had allies they hadn't expected. What now? Serafina asked. Now we go home, Zeke said. We tend our garden. We help people who need healing. Together, if you'll have us. Serafina looked at Constance, who smiled and nodded. The old woman had gained more than her health in the past weeks. She had gained a daughter. I'll have you. They rode out of town as the sun reached its peak. Behind them, the community grappled with the truth they had revealed. Some would embrace it, others would reject it. But it was there now, permanent and undeniable. The ranch welcomed them home with familiar silence. The cabin looked the same, but everything had changed. They were no longer three isolated people, seeking shelter. They were a family, bound by choice and strengthened by shared purpose. That evening, they sat on the porch watching the sunset. The sky blazed with color, promising fair weather ahead. The land stretched endlessly before them, full of possibility. Think it will make a difference? Serafina asked. It already has. Constance replied. How? Look around. Look at us. A grieving rancher, a wandering healer, a dying woman. 3 weeks ago, we were nothing. Now we're everything. What are we? We're proof that healing is possible. That love grows in the most unlikely places. That justice can bloom even in poisoned soil. Zeke reached for Seraphine's hand. She took it without hesitation. Their fingers intertwined, strong and certain. Martha would have liked you, he said. I would have liked her. She would have said that some storms bring exactly what you need, even if you don't know you need it. Smart woman. She was. But she never met anyone quite like you. What makes me different? You healed more than my mother's body. You healed my heart. The sun disappeared behind the mountains, leaving the sky painted in shades of gold and crimson. Stars began to appear, distant and bright. The air carried the scent of growing things, of rain-washed earth, of new beginnings. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The doctor's trial, the community's reaction, the work of building something better from the ashes of what had been. But tonight, 3 people who had found each other in the storm sat together in perfect peace. The grieving rancher had taken in a beggar to tend his ailing mother, but she had quietly healed his heart, and in doing so, had healed them all, and that is all to the story for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you, it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.